have
problems,
the
obviously.
only thing I've learned from this conversation is that it literally doesn't matter what I do. I'm racist. People hate me. I support pedophilia and also unconstitutional.
I don't know who you
sex
are, but I
registration
believe
at the
those
same
people. All
time.
right, I believe those people against you. All
100%.
right, sorry.
100%.
Charlotte, you're a fucking degen. Shut up. Nukes, not everybody thinks that, right? The people that actually care about this conversation.
Ryder. I don't know what's going on in that little pea brain of yours. I think you need to take a class on sarcasm. All right, you're
Sure,
being a bit
absolutely.
silly.
Yeah, but like, to
I do not,
credit,
in fact,
like,
think that
I
Joe
would feel that
Biden
way
should
too if I was him.
declare extinction of white people button.
Are you sure about
Like,
that?
obviously, okay,
Are
obviously
you
you're
really
being
sure,
hyperbolic.
Joe?
Charlotte, I wasn't
Nor
addressing
do
you.
I think that we should call people racist, irrespective
What I'm
of their
talking about
actual
is-
politics and like beliefs.
No,
Are
but
you
like,
sure?
no, honestly though, it's pretty horrible that he honestly feels that way. Like, truly, like, it's bad that we all just have such a negative impression of DAs, and we all have our reasons for why we have negative impressions of DAs.
Wait, Nuke, you're a district attorney?
What?
Yeah.
Wait,
an ADA. Yeah.
Yeah, you're a little like
that's actually so sick. What the fuck? You have so much power.
Okay. Anyways, Nuke, to your credit, I hope you truly understand that not even everybody in this like server thinks that all DAs are horrible. We're just trying to consult what we consider the experts in order to try to figure out a better way of like operating.
Nuke, don't listen to this guy. You might as well be a brown shirt.
What state are you in ADA in? Or like California?
I'm not gonna give that to fucking DA.
Yeah, like, I mean, he's already stood here and like gone through the gauntlet of like being scrutinized.
Don't say nothing more.
No, I'm not asking for your fucking county, my guy, or your city. I just mean like the
I have
state,
yelled at him
like
quite a
the
lot and told him
social
that I think he's
context you live
racist.
in, right?
So
Because
he
if you're like
kinda
an
does
ADA and
deserve
like,
but just
like
because you don't understand that information,
if you're like an ADA in like Oklahoma, right? I'm gonna be like, okay, like
I will
whatever.
come after. I will send like a
Florida
box of shit at you.
I'm not an ADA in Oklahoma, but I don't want to give any more information out about.
So let me find out where you are. Okay.
List of all district attorneys in the United States. Watches video clips of every single one speaking until I find the right one.
There we go.
Fantastic.
Is
But
there
no,
a
I mean,
fucking ADA list?
You need to go to
there's
the
not
debate,
a
Doug.
cumulative ADA list, and you wouldn't be able to find video clips of every ADA because some courts.
First of all,
don't allow
you
recording.
underestimate my tenacity. All right, I will listen to
I
all
don't. I know that you have the
31,125
micro
assistant
skills of
district
most
attorneys.
thirsty
All right,
women. I get that.
there are 31,125 assistant district attorneys. All right, none of you are safe.
I'm gonna take a vocal scan of Nuked, and then I'm gonna put it into a system with all of the district attorneys' voices and see which ones match closest, and then listen to the ones that match closest.
Wait, can't you have like have like a team of all districts to like
What
search
is a
all
district
district
attorney doing on a Sunday in the DGG chat talking with a bunch of degenerates?
That is also a very good question.
Honestly, I'm just grinding BDO right now. Just chilling.
Wait, what does a district attorney do? I'm not American.
Nothing important.
Your mom.
Does your mom?
They go around the streets. They go around the streets
lots
of
like
the hood.
legal responsibility within like wherever they live. They're like
persecuting black people. Okay.
They
So
are
what
like
a district
the
attorney's
person who
day-to-day- They're like
mini
decides-
Hitlers.
They're
They're like
one
a
of the
district
people that
attorney's-
decides. They are one of the people that decides whether or not you like get charged with a crime, like, and you go to trial.
They're like our moral.
Their day to day is they wake up in the morning, they drink a coffee, they throw a dart at a board with like a black person on it,
Like,
and then they just like think a little bit, and you're like, okay,
if you commit a
this is who
crime,
I'm gonna arrest today.
Why
Yeah,
are
I'm
7 of
really
you
surprised
talking
at
at
how
once?
reasonable
Fuck.
Charlotte is acting right now. I expected her to be like fit to spit.
They're
She
like
was
the
so mad.
strongest part of our
I'm like
culture.
I'm like answering someone's like legitimate question about what a district attorney is. What the fuck?
No, we
So am I, bro.
learned what it does say. Grand juries
The
decide.
person obviously does. Also, no, that's not true. Not everything goes to a grand jury. Shut the fuck up. What the fuck? Why are you spreading misinformation on the internet?
No, both of y'all are right. I don't know why y'all fighting. It's okay.
Fake
Calm
news.
down.
No, free. Free. He is
Luke, I do
right.
appreciate you being a good sport.
Because he implied
whenever
that
you said,
all.
I don't know if you know the law.
No, he did not.
And,
No, he did not. No, he did
letting
not.
me play with you for a little bit after that. Thank you for that. I appreciate it.
No,
He
free.
was saying that in his particular case, his cases go through grand jury.
No. For when someone says in response to someone saying the district attorney charges people to in response saying no, grand juries do, right?
No, to be clear, in my state, if you are charged with a capital offense, so an offense where you can be sentenced to death, or an offense for which you can be sentenced to life in prison, that has to go through a grand jury. He's correct. Every other crime is charged by bill of information, which is not a bill of indictment. Those are separate things.
Yeah, because like for example, like someone could be like, there's like a video of them, right? Like like stealing something, but then like the like attorney, like the prosecutors could be like, we don't the resources, the fees, the court time, right? We're too clogged up. It's not worth prosecuting this guy. He's not going to do it again, whatever, and they let him go, right? This happens
Maybe.
because if we were to like prosecute every single person, right?
Not if they're black though.
Oh yeah, true.
Jesus Christ, dude.
You're welcome.
I love
See,
black people.
That's how you do it.
I love black people.
Nice
Don't
job,
you
baby.
dare, Nukes, don't you dare tell me that you, like every other
Are we
attorney, has
talking
not
about
wanted
Sandra
to be.
Bland?
No,
Free,
don't tell me that you, like every other
me.
attorney,
I
has
love
not
black
wanted to
people,
be
right?
Catherine
call my
Hepburn and
name,
Spencer
man. Leave me
Tracy
alone,
in that
bro.
one movie between the two attorneys. Like, don't you dare try and tell me that.
What movie are you talking about?
It's a movie where Catherine Hepburn and Spencer Tracy are married, and they are both attorneys. One's a defender, one's a public prosecutor. His last great movie.
Oh, I haven't seen it. Maybe I should check it out.
Well, then you're not a real attorney, and I don't know why you've been talking this whole time as though you are.
I didn't realize I was.
Yeah, big example. I have a very real world example of like a prosecutor, like a DA, right, choosing whether or not to prosecute or like go to trial, right, or retrial, whatever, right? So there's this film, right, about a very famous case. It's called Just Mercy, right? There's this guy who was falsely imprisoned for murder, right? And then they found evidence that, like, he didn't in fact commit, murder of like an innocent white woman. But this town was so like, the culture was like they just didn't want to think about it. They got the guy, whatever, right? They got closure. And then the DA, right, even seeing after all the evidence, he refused to go to retrial, right? He refused to prosecute it because he like, the clout, right? He wanted to stay district attorney. And then they got, they took it through the courts, and then he got fucked, and he lost.
I mean, like, those types of things. There are positives and negatives to like any type of like political like election system. Like, if you're elected, you are more accountable, and you're not going to want to do crazy shit. But then you're also going to make political moves. So it's just it's given a take.
But the law is like regardless of what we try to do to make it as apolitical as possible, the law at like some point will like be political, right? In how you decide to do things and how we prosecute people, what we punish people with, right? Because there's like discretion on punishment, right? Should this person get 25 years or should they get 5 years, right? Like it's a political decision or whatever.
Sometimes it's a political decision. Yeah.
Like especially when it's like a heinous crime that has a lot of attention and people like want to punish the fuck out of whoever did it or whatever, like giving them the harshest punishment possible is a political decision, right?
Yeah,
like
could be, yeah.
Well, or it's the like strategic leverage ploy, which I don't know if is better or worse.
Lawyers fucking suck. They're worse than cops. No cap.
Honestly, I think there's
no. This is silly. This is okay. No. We need to, the worst part. All right, about like I don't know, in American culture, because I don't know how it is in like other people through their media and how they view lawyers. People are too tough, right, on like defense lawyers, and like especially in America, prosecutors are like these heroes, right? They're like, oh, they're taking on the bad guys, and the defense lawyers are always like, this is the guy who's defending the guy who raped 4 children or whatever. How could he possibly do that? It's like fucking so retarded.
I don't know if in our modern today
get rid of the pedophile.
Watch any cop show, right? The defense lawyer is always the one.
We're talking about real life though.
No. Yes, these media tropes don't appear out of nowhere. The people who write them are a part of our culture, and the reason they're popular tropes is because people have implicit biases. Right?
In media, the DA
they demonize defense lawyers.
That
right?
used to be true.
It's still pretty true. In media, the DA is either going to be somebody who's like fighting against some corrupt cops, or like. I think now sometimes you'll see that the DA is also corrupt, but
no, the
I
DA
feel like
is
it's
the
more
prosecutor.
rare.
Prosecutors, and like especially the more conservative you get, right? People who are like taking down the bad guy, they're prosecuting the bad guy, right? the prosecution is like they're the good guys, right? They're
Wait,
taking
hold
down
on.
the murderer.
Okay,
So
hold
the
on.
issue that I have with that is that the majority of like popular media that portrays DAs or people in those scenarios now are usually like pretty serious like cop dramas where they're almost always portrayed as corrupt or working in cooperation.
No, but that's the point. The fact that they're portrayed as corrupt in all of our media is a bad thing because it shapes what people think about defense lawyers in the real world, and it affects the legal system.
What I was trying to say was like there exist tropes like that portray them in like both lights. The only reason why we have one over the other now, it's not necessarily a reflection of society, but more so just a reflection of the media that we watch and that we like subversive portrayals of like reality.
One might argue
this has been like written about. It is a result.
About defense attorneys.
It is a result of our highly punitive culture, especially when it comes to criminal justice. Right? Those who defend the bad guys will always get a bad rap, even if they're just doing their job and providing people their civil liberties. Right? Like,
yeah, but how when I like came in here, like it's almost the opposite. Like you get on trial for like, I don't know, being like a racist or putting people in jail when they don't need to be put in jail, or like X, Y, and Z, like etc. It seems like at least online, where a lot of the power is held today, like in like the terminally online spaces, the idea of like being like a prosecutor is that like you're just a bloodthirsty piece of shit.
Because historically prosecutors, because they're just a person in a position, right? Like they're just a cog in the social machine, right? Their actions are reflective of like our society's implicit biases, especially in the criminal justice system. Historically, right? Prosecutors are the people who are more likely to be, racist, right? They're the people who produce racist outcomes, which is why electing like progressive prosecutors is super important.
No, hold on. That's what we were arguing about earlier. I don't think prosecutors.
No, I think people who think that prosecutors are universally bad guys for being prosecutors, that's silly, right? But right, we can recognize that on average, right, if you elect a conservative or a person who believes in punitive justice, right, as a prosecutor, you're going to have worse outcomes for your society than someone who believes in, say, rehabilitative justice, right?
I don't think it's a binary. I think that you can.
Yes, it's a sliding scale, and the farther you're closer to rehabilitation, the more better outcomes you're going to get, and the more you slide the scale towards punitive justice in their mindset and how they do policy, right, and how they prosecute people, you're going to have worse outcomes.
No, it's a sliding scale, and it's not like one side is good and one side is bad. It's a multi-varied equation that you have to think about when you think about like what are you punishing someone for? Like,
is that what the evidence says, though?
Hold on. One of the primary focuses of the criminal justice system is to take vengeance out of the hands of other people, right? Or out of normal people and put it into the hands of the justice system, so you don't have people committing blood feuds and shit like that. Like that's probably a good thing. Like we probably want punishment. We want people.
Yeah, this is a very 17th, 18th and 19th century view on criminal justice. Yes, sure. In the creation of like a central body, a central authority, a third party arbitrator to like determine things, blah, 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 right? But in the current world where we have like more progressive justice systems, like in the Nordic countries and in some Western European countries, right? Now there's not that many. The outcomes are much better when we take like revenge and retribution completely, like almost completely out of the equation when it comes to criminal justice.
Do you think that there might be an issue, like an issue of scale when you're talking about
no, because these are countries with like millions and millions and millions of people who also have murderers and like rapists and like all these different things.
Yeah, so one, I would say you probably do have an issue with scale. Especially not only the fact that the United States is geographically so large that cultures between different states in the United States are vastly different.
Wait, you think that why is culture a component of whether or not rehabilitative justice produces good outcomes for society? And
because it's probably going to be harder to implement rehabilitative justice if the culture around us isn't supportive of it.
I agree. The more punitive your society is, the harder a sell it is to pass rehabilitative justice policy. That's not what is being discussed. What is being discussed is the merits
fucking Christ, dog. Look,
I'm not talking to you. I'm not talking to you. I'm explaining something to average FK.
But you asked him a question and he was responding, and then you cut him off and fucking talk over him.
Because average FK interrupted, and now I'm clarifying something for average FK.
No, but you interrupted Nuke in his response.
You're just doing more interrupting, and you're just holding up the conversation. The conversation would have already continued because I've already ended my sentence. Ending my sentence was just that the conversation is over the merits of the policy, not how easy or good it is to pass it.
Or are we gonna to have a conversation.
That the conversations can continue now.
Usually a conversation requires
Wait,
two people.
so I did ask, to be
You're
fair.
being
I stepped
retarded
in
now.
and asked
I
this. Just let him like
allowed the conversation
Yeah.
to continue. I said, continue the conversation now. Now keep talking.
Okay.
And now you just interrupted it to like do a little zing. Like what the fuck?
Good job,
It's-
Average. Good job.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Oh no.
Anyway, fuck, I don't even remember. So geographically, there's going to be a really large difference between certain cultures in the United States because of how large we are. There's going to be fuck, dude, I don't even remember where the fuck I was going with this because we got so fucking.
We're
off
talking
track.
about like difference in cultures between states and how to quantify it on scale.
Yeah, you're gonna have to like get to a situation where people actually accept the idea that like we're just doing rehabilitation. I would say when you look at like Nordic countries or you look at like places like Australia or other places where people would consider that to be more rehabilitative, you want to look at the levels of like interpersonal violence that those people are experiencing. So how much more likely are people to get battered over there? How much more likely are they to be robbed, burglarized, etc., and compare that with the rates that we have here. I would also say like you should look at how victims feel about the response of law enforcement.
I have surveys and all that kind of stuff about that. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Fantastic.
There are surveys about capital punishment in Texas, of all places, where it finds that capital punishment doesn't bring closure. Right? It doesn't make people feel better when it happens. Like all it does is bring more pain.
Punishment.
No, but this is like the most extreme version of punitive justice, right? So we can ask people about how they feel about when the punitive stuff happens, how it makes them personally feel. And so
Don't you think death is a
when we
little bit
start
different?
at the most extreme form of it, right? Because I don't know what your opinion on capital punishment. I don't know if you are in favor of banning it. I don't know, right? So that's why I'm starting here. Unless you want to just skip this and say you already agree for like banning capital punishment.
Yeah, I would say just for like reasons of the way that it's structured now, we should probably not have capital punishment.
Okay, never mind then. I'll just skip this point because you already agree with me.
And I think death is a little bit different than any other system that you're going to be talking about, and people view that to be differently.
True.
Yeah, so the issue of scale, right, I don't think holds any water because these countries I'm talking about, like combined, have like populations that rival like some of our most populous states, right? And they are doing just fine. Like, and the point isn't just like the lower recidivism, right? Is good for our wider society, right?
Is it?
Having less people in our criminal justice system when they don't have to be there, right? Right, is good because it costs less money, right? It creates more workers, right? Because people are actually being productive in society. It like creates more social bonds in society because people are less separated from their loved ones and like etc. Like it brings a bunch of social value and economic value to have like more restorative like policies as opposed to just locking someone in a cage for 5 years in a environment that like just reproduces criminality and then expecting them to be better when they get out. Right?
Yeah. So like again, like what I would say is that it's a sliding scale, and it's like you're not going to get me to say like all punishment, like it should be all punishment. You should just torture the fuck out of people. It should be horrendous, and that's the way that it should be. But I think that punishment serves a legitimate purpose in making victims feel like we're taking what they went through seriously and giving them some sort of closure. And like you can do all the these weird surveys on capital punishment that you want, but I've spoken with victims of rape, like people who have been like, I mean, you can say like it's anecdotal.
It is anecdotal. It's like
that's fine.
But you're doing the classic thing where you'll say the thing and then you'll acknowledge why it's fallacious, but then you'll continue on with it. Like why do that?
It doesn't have to be fallacious. Just because something's anecdotal doesn't mean
no, because you're using it to inform wider policy decisions that affect millions and millions and millions of people, right?
Yeah, and I can tell you that when I'm talking about people being punished, making victims feel better, that is something that I've personally seen. That it does make victims feel better when people are held accountable for the harm that they have done to them.
And the assailant is being punished already by being separated from society, by losing their freedom.
Yeah, and but that's the issue. So it becomes an issue of like, what do you consider punishment and what's not punishment, right? So like then we're going to get into a discussion of like, well, is putting someone away for I don't know 25 years like for murder, like is that punishment or is that not enough, or like
the amount of punitive elements in the justice system should only go as far as it produces good outcomes, right? So putting someone like solitary confinement doesn't help anybody, right? It literally
no.
hurts.
Good outcomes for the victim.
For
every
for a wider society,
right?
not just the individual,
Yeah,
right? Because our criminal justice system doesn't exist to like serve individual victims' families, right? And victims. It also serves the wider society to keep people safe in the future, right? To like make people less criminal, to you know, and creating a society and a culture that is much more forgiving, much more believing in like rehabilitation, right? Will also like stem and lessen the feelings that people have when they are victimized, right? Because instead of focusing, right, all of their like anger and emotions on the pain and on the victimization, right, you're able to like create a system where people, you know, actually seek healing and fixing themselves and like getting better and like recovering, right? And part of that, right, which is why a lot of reason why capital punishment is so bad, just to bring it up as an example, is because the extended like time the families have to deal with the criminal, like the assailant, right, just keeps the wound open forever because it constantly reminds them of the thing that happened, as opposed to allowing them to move on, which is what a rehabilitative justice system would do, where we prosecute them for the crime and that's it, it's over, right? And now the family can get on with their lives, they can move on, and they can, you know, get better, and we can provide services, do all of these different things, because the rehabilitative justice system isn't just about the assailant, right, in the jail system. It's a wider thing about restoration, right? It's about creating a system where both the victims and the assailant get better, so that everyone like benefits, like in the wider society.
Nobody's
You're
disagreeing.
talking
Nobody's
more
disagreeing.
about a.
But you're like
You're talking
seemingly
more about a
disagreeing.
commentary on the.
Nobody's disagreeing with that. What the disagreement comes is that in order for it to be better for society, there is some punishment that has to happen.
Yeah, and for me, that extends.
No. But when you initially phrased this, you said there's a sliding scale, and however close you get to the rehabilitative side, then it's just better. And it's like, well, that's not necessarily true. There's a mixture. Okay, then we have no argument, because your initial claim was that.
No, the disagreement is probably how far on that sliding scale you think it should be.
Okay, yeah, then that might be the disagreement on it, and we would have to get into the weeds on what exactly is appropriate and what's not appropriate.
Like for me, like the punishment of separation from society and the revoking of your rights is like enough, right?
The idea that punishment is itself is bad or has no place in rehabilitation. Punishment can be part of rehabilitation, like.
Because the reason why we don't want to use punitive measures, like stuff like solitary, stuff like restricting the things you do, stuff like forced labor, right, is because these things don't reproduce like pro-social and like normal behaviors, right?
I'm not advocating for solitary.
But those are the kinds of punishments that exist in prison. Like, what else would you be talking about? Like forcing someone to take a class? Like, what? Like, sure.
Your presupposition is not correct.
If you're a victim of a crime, you probably don't want the person to be rehabilitated. You want
fuck that person's feelings, right? That's a stupid thing to believe, and that person is harming society themselves. And even if they think that it would make them feel better, guess what? They're not the only person who should like be accounted for. Wider society, the economy, and our social world should also be accounted for.
Yes, but some of what they want should be accounted for, and there necessarily needs to be some punishment in that rehabilitation.
And like I'm saying, the punishment is having them separated from society.
That's not what you initially claimed, though. Your initial claim was that there's a sliding scale of punishment and rehabilitation.
We already reclarified. We already clarified, so I don't know why you're going back to
Then I don't know why you're continuing, because we don't have a disagreement.
Why do you think rehabilitating a single person is...
No, because now we're talking about the merits of like which punishments are appropriate, which like punitive measures are okay, like the merits of the individual punitive measures, right? So for example, I would oppose stuff like the forced labor, right? I would oppose stuff like solitary confinement. I would oppose stuff like limited yard time, right? All these kinds of things that like create and like reproduce criminality and like are like create asocial like behavior.
Yeah, that's the point. You're trying to hurt the person that hurts.
Yeah, but what happens when they get out? Now you've just created a lifelong criminal who doesn't understand the real world and can't function in the real world because they've like
likely they have connections.
One might argue that forced labor would give a hard skill that would be able to. We just need to adjust what hard skills we're having them learn.
Maybe we shouldn't have slavery in our society. Maybe we should make it socially unacceptable for slavery to exist.
You're being forced to learn hard skills, bud. That's rehabilitation. You can have.
Well, to be fair, it's not. To be fair, these programs.
Wait, Ryder, do you agree that homework? Do you think that homework is labor?
Rehabilitation is just always what somebody likes?
Are these programs?
No, there's a difference between forcing someone to do like manual labor and then like telling someone that they need to like take a class on I don't know, some random thing, right? Like
I want to clarify to the guy who's saying like to the guy who's talking about
like learning to cook and like doing all this stuff, right? These aren't like forced labors, right? These are like teaching skills.
Okay, hold on.
And like it's like therapy, right? It's like therapy. Are you like a slave if you are like involuntarily institutionalized and have to do like breathing exercises in order to like learn how to be less angry?
Okay, Charlotte. Instead of steamrolling, what about
I'm not steamrolling. I just finished.
That we do have. Okay, what about work programs, right? What about states that allow?
They should be voluntary. Work program stuff like manual labor.
They are voluntary, but you're still in the prison system. So it's technically mandatory.
His argument is against the voluntary.
Prison labor, even if on paper it says this is voluntary, right? Often in many states, 1, it's not. Often it goes unpaid. 2, 3. Often it's coerced with stuff like solitary confinement, beatings, losing privileges, right? So
you think that you're going to get anybody to agree that, like, yes, beating inmates is like a good
this
thing?
person is literally saying that we should like make slaves of prisoners. So
he's not
like,
saying that you should make slaves. He's saying that you should teach them practical skills. This is the most bad faith shit I've ever
literally
heard.
said before.
It honestly is, and this is the thing. Like,
what do you mean teaching? You said work program. What do you think work is? When the word work specifically is a designation for labor.
You're going to sit here and try to steamroll this. Do you have any anecdotal, just for the sake of fucking
anecdote?
Do you have any anecdotal evidence of inmates that you've talked to that says that this is not beneficial?
What? Why did you ask me for an anecdote?
Things that you're arguing against.
We're not answering that. We're not
you're retarded.
Y'all. Wait. The programs you guys are talking about are.
Stop fucking screaming. I'm fucking sick of it. Like, please. Stop talking over one another. I've been trying to say this for a few moments. Let's get back to the point where we're having the calm conversation.
What the fuck?
Yeah. I mean, I know.
For what?
I just said. Yeah. Okay. I'm not.
I just got kicked out.
Yeah. Were you listening, sir? Because if you were, I was calmly explaining that we ought not interrupt. You were in the middle of speaking. I had to clear the room. Just calm down. It's not the worst thing that's going to happen to you in your lifetime. It's a disconnect. Okay. Now, Charlotte, please.
I don't think is she here?
Oh, she
left. It took off.
That was a great disconnect. The programs you guys are talking about, like, are they work programs or are they like skill programs? Because there's skill programs in prisons, but like, I don't know if that's what you guys specifically are talking about, right? It seems like this guy's issue is work programs that are forcing people to work and not like skill programs that you sign up for.
So the thing that was bothering me about Charlotte's outline is that Charlotte was trying to advocate for rehabilitation, right? And to say that forced work or forced skill training is not beneficial in rehabilitation of felons is just like absolutely asinine as a claim.
And she's talking about forced labor. Y'all are talking past each other. She is talking about like fucking chain gangs, picking up trash, putting together lawn.
And that's good for rehabilitation.
No, so what they don't do is teach people skills. You're just an assembly line worker. You're not like taught mostly. You just
I agree. I understand, and that's why I was saying that
So if you're talking about a program, a work program where you teach skills and you train people to be workers and you give them opportunities after they live, I think they would agree. But if you're just talking about put you in a chain gang or put you on an assembly line, then no.
What if you like raise 20 kids though? Should those people be learning skills or like should they be punished somehow?
Yeah, in California, a lot of our jailers or a lot of our prisoners go to fight the fires and shit for like $5 a day, and then don't get to be like firefighters when they get out.
Are we saying every felon deserves rehabilitation, and there's like no room for like just punitive measures just to like make them suffer for?
This is a different conversation, bro.
Yes, and Charlotte is not here to defend the point, so I can't, in good faith. I don't believe that. I mean, there's some level of punishment. Again, it's a sliding scale, as was said earlier. We want to reserve punishment for the most extreme. There are a whole bunch of inefficacies in the system between here and where we need to be. But I don't think just getting rid of punishment or like trying to have an all rehabilitative system is feasible, or if it doesn't work.
And crimes against children deserve a very extreme punishment.
Again, no, they deserve rehabilitation too, but also punishment. These things can come in tandem, right? Yes, I'm going to remove you from society, right? I'm going to punish you in some way, but it's not like I'm going to force you to do labor, right? Or when I say labor, I mean like put you on a chain gang and make you pick up trash in 100-degree weather because nobody else will do it, right?
Yeah,
Like make you fight fires for $5 an hour and not pay you and not give you an opportunity.
But I guess the question is, who else is going to do that?
I mean,
right?
No. Again, yeah, I didn't say there's anything wrong with putting people in these positions, but it's not just for the labor. It has to be in a rehabilitative space. So if I give these firefighters the opportunity to fight fires, I also want to give them jobs after they get out of jail. I want to have.
Some people are going to look at that as like you giving them an opportunity to repay their debt to society, right? Like,
yeah.
Who else are we going to get to pick up trash off the side of the street?
You're
like,
not
it is
disagreeing with
beneficial
me
for
right now,
society.
Luke.
Yeah.
But you're not disagreeing with me. I agree. While they're in jail, while they're in custody, you do the work. But the work that you do, I want you to be learning something, gathering a skill, and I want to use that labor in the future.
Absolutely.
You fight fires, go fight fires.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think all of us still in here definitely 100% agree with that. And I've heard Charlotte's argument, and I've argued with Charlotte on this point before. So as Charlotte's point is very good for like most things. The one thing that I would say is that, and that we agree on, is that we need to change the prison system in what we consider to be rehabilitative, as far as like what they offer for hard skill and soft skill, like rehabilitation, like forcing them to take skills that would be beneficial and transferable in industries that you could get into as a felon on the outside. Like if we had programs, like I know it'd be dangerous, right? But if you can start getting people to lower and lower levels of like management, and you start getting to like lower like camp and stuff, where you could have more access to things where you could teach them more actual hard skills. But like definitely the rehabilitation of like getting them to have better social skills, like soft skills, like regardless of whatever their severity or where they're at, like maximum. And yeah, but that's what I was trying to advocate for in the beginning, is like we definitely need to reform like what types of skills that we're offering to inmates and at what levels inside the prison system as far as rehabilitation, and then having it transferable when they get out, like they mentioned with firefighting and stuff. Like they said, it's like you do it while you're on the inside, but then nobody hires you on the outside. And part of the issue, I would argue, is that like with like repeat offenders, like first time offenders, or people that actually are the ones that we're talking about that are getting rehabilitated, the title of felon is following them for so long, and job employers are not willing to take the risk on that title. And although I'm not saying that every felon that every felon who says they're rehabilitated will actually be rehabilitated and that they won't repeat offend, I'm not saying that, but like there are a large majority of people who just made a fuck up in life and are trying to fix it, and they're not given the proper like ability to.
I think like aren't there like I think Norway has like a system where they have where they remove like the criminal badge thing or something.
Yeah, or at least block it for specific categories for employment.
After like you're free for a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
Do you guys
Sorry
think
to
that?
interject, but what's the topic about?
Oh no,
we're not going to repeat it.
Do you guys think?
Listen up.
I'm asking a question.
We don't care.
Okay. Do you guys think that expunging records should be automatic?
No.
Really? Okay. So, question. Okay. Well, I think you're wrong because, I have an older brother who's like dealing with that currently because he's trying to find a new job, whatever. And he's going through the process of expunging his record for a misdemeanor, and it's fucking hard as shit.
It should be hard.
Why?
Right. Well, first off, you asked, should it be automatic? Well, first off, again, I'll answer. You first, if it should be automatic. No, I think one ought to reach out for those rights. Or that to expunge a record, because I don't think you just deserve it because you committed a crime and you don't feel like dealing with the consequences of it, right? If you have served your time, if you've paid your debt to society, and you can go through the extra process, you ought to be able to do that and complete it. It should be an arduous process. It shouldn't be like easy, because I don't think it's like just that it's easy that your crimes, your transgressions just go away, right? Because again, like these are things that may have harmed individuals, and if they did, I don't think that's something we just like forget, right? Something you have to, and at least if we do, you have to go through some measure of work to get there. I think that's fair.
Yeah, but the only barrier is money. So like rich people could just do whatever the fuck they want and get their shit.
That's
It's
that's
easy.
not
So wait,
that's
so
okay.
I think that's a good point. I think it's money, but it's also access, right? So I was thinking about it more deeply after he had come back from like a seminar, basically explaining to a whole bunch of people how to do it. And my thing is like it's access, it's money, but it's also like opportunity cost. Like, what if people don't have the time because they're working now? What if people don't have the time because they are maybe they have like, I don't know, like disabilities, or like what if they don't have the time because they just don't understand it because their education level isn't there. There's a myriad of issues there that they can't get it. So why do they not deserve it? Because they're in a situation where they do not understand, they don't have the money, they don't have the time to do so. But if you're in a wealthier, if you're in a higher education, et cetera, you can do it mad quickly.
Yeah, so I mean, all you're talking about are things that can be gained. You're not. First off, it's not about desserts. You have access, right? You just need to put in the work, right? You can learn. You can figure this out. You do have to take time, and it is your burden because you're responsible for committing the crime in the first place. It is no one else's fault other than your own. You ought to be able to do that work. If you specifically, if this is something you value, if you don't value it, I don't think you would make those sacrifices. And we want to see that type of work for someone if we just want to expunge your record and let it.
And I want to point out actually that there are in some states, and it's hard because there's 50 states to speak on every state, crimes that are automatically expunged. Those tend to be like your first offenses in certain circumstances for your first offense. One of the issues with automatic expungement is that a lot of times expungement is contingent on you not having additional criminal behavior. And I know that like people that don't work in like the criminal justice system think that all of these like systems are like interconnected and like that there's just a big fucking database that knows everything about you. That's generally not
I kind of
true.
wish there was.
Yeah, it's generally not true. So it becomes hard for without a human being to go through and like pick through certain systems to like figure out whether or not you have done something, and that costs money, that costs time, that costs like somebody having to do that. So we generally put the onus on the individual who wants the expungement to come forward and prove, hey, by the way, I completed my probation, I did X, Y, and Z, I haven't been convicted of another crime, I would like this to be expunged, right?
Yeah. Okay. That's fair and everything. But my only idea is that like for it not to be more of a easier process is because like the more what's the word I'm thinking of, like arduous you make it, the more it feels retributive. Like what's the difficult, the more it feels retributive rather than prohibitive. Like more like it feels like as if you're actually trying to help these people come back into society. It feels like you're just punishing them. Like, hey, you did this crime, you deserve all the punishment, you deserve all the difficulties you're putting onto you because you did this a year ago, 5 years ago. You know what I mean?
No, but I mean, but we're talking about removing your transgressions from your record here. It's not like people put this on you. You did that, and if you want us to remove that, do the work.
And also, your record, to be fair, like it does say something about you, something valuable about you as well. As like okay, so in a trial, you know, I'm not allowed to like bring up the fact that somebody has committed previous crimes in order to prove that they committed a certain crime. That's propensity evidence, right? But that doesn't mean that's just because it's highly prejudicial. But that doesn't mean that it's not probative.
Wait, you're a lawyer.
Is,
you're a lawyer,
highly probative.
Dude. You're a lawyer, right? Okay, it's literally okay. When you try to create foundation, someone can literally say, that this is literally out of order, that this foundation is not permissible in court because this is trying to make them look like a character evidence, right? This is like it just makes a bad version of the person.
There's some evidence though that would fit, right? Like if there's evidence that somebody's committing like a certain amount of crimes that are like somewhat connected to a crime that they're on trial for, I feel like it would be enough evidence to be like, listen, this person has committed these crimes in the past. These crimes are connected to this for XYZ reason. And like using that.
When I took pre-law classes, because like I was in pre-law, so like I do understand what you're saying, but like I just don't think it's fair because if I'm gonna get deeper into this, talking about my personal life with my older brother, like the reason why he has a misdemeanor is because he was like fucking high off drugs at the time, right? So I don't think that instance can like prove to you who he is as a person, in his totality. That's not fair.
Yeah, but we're
Do
not
you
really just
actually think
talking
so?
about your brother. We're talking about
Right.
like society as a whole. And the thing is, the reason that we don't allow propensity evidence, which is what you're talking about is character evidence, is not because propensity evidence is not probative, meaning that it does not have evidentiary value. It definitely does. The issue is that we believe that juries and other people would rely too heavily on it and give it too much weight to the point where it would be prejudicial. So when an individual is like looking at somebody's criminal history, there is a lot of probative value in that to determine what type of person that is. Like whether or not you want to agree with that, it's just true. Like people do tend to act in conformity with how they've acted in the past.
I don't necessarily believe that. I genuinely think that someone, like, let's say you're trying to bring evidence from 10 years ago to a case that happened last year. I don't think that's necessarily fair.
I mean,
Do
that's
you?
probably
We don't. That's what I'm telling you. We don't
I
do
know,
that.
but you're saying it would be prejudicial. Not prejudicial. But you know the word I'm trying to use. Like you're trying to say the jury would depend too much on that evidence 10 from 10 years ago.
Crimes harder to
Like, dude,
explain
I'm
to
sorry.
people
I
He's
have
not.
like a
He's
fucking
not saying.
mad headache. Like,
Yeah, he's
chill.
not. He's not
No,
saying.
it was just
He's not
funny,
saying that.
man.
No,
Like-
so he's not. He's not saying that.
That's all I'm trying to say here. So like if you're saying that people who are trying to expunge the records deserve that difficulty, like I get it. I get what you're trying to say. They deserve to like go through that effort to try to make their records clean. It just seems in my perspective that they've gone through the hardship. They've done the jail time. They've paid the tickets. They went through court. They've done all the shit they had to. Why do they have to go through this extra effort to expunge their record when it should just be cleared the second they leave prison or the second
what
they
is the
clear off
usual what's the usual process of expunging a record? Is it just an auto thing or do you have to prove something?
No, so it depends on what it is. It's
depends on the state also.
Typically,
like
it depends on if your
violent
sentence was
crimes, right?
deferred, or it depends on if you're actually having a real expungement, which is different. So if it's a deferred sentence, and most states have this now, after the completion of your probation or whatever happened, you would go to your local clerk of court, file your paperwork showing that you have completed your probation, go in front of a judge, and then that sentence would be dismissed under whatever statute you deferred it under. If it's something that you didn't have deferred and you're actually seeking a real expungement, similar to the same process, after a certain period of years, whatever the statute allows, you can go file with the clerk, ask for an expungement. You serve that on the sheriff and the district attorney, ask if they have any objection to it or there's any reason for it, have a contradictory hearing before a judge. The judge will either approve or deny it. Once it's approved or denied, you go to the clerk, show them that information, and they'll expunge your record.
Okay, but in the specific cases of like felonies and like trying to like getting it expunged for the sake of trying to restore your gun rights, correct? Like even if you get it overturned at the state level, you still don't get your federal gun rights back, correct?
That's correct. That is correct.
So
Yeah.
so then what is the added benefit of even trying to go for that if you can't actually get it fully expunged and get your rights reinstated?
So one of the benefits with that of expungement would be on a job application. If someone asks you if you have been convicted of a felony or a crime, you can truthfully say no to that because that is no longer a part of your record, right?
Yeah,
Okay,
that's the
but
biggest benefit.
Hold up. So we're equating our record to like truth in general. Like I can already say like
Dog,
I
you were
guess
convicted of the crime. What do you mean? We're
Yeah,
not.
that's the
We're
technical
actively,
okay, but
we're not doing it
okay,
if we
but
expunge
just
it.
because you were convicted of a crime doesn't necessarily mean that you did the crime that you were convicted of in the first place, right? That's a large assumption.
Well,
And
no,
the
if you're
fact that-
expunging
That's
it,
the-
if you're
that's the
expunging it, you were.
philosophical with
If you're
this.
expunging it, that doesn't matter whether you did or not. You were
Right.
convicted of it, right? Like the court has decided there's enough evidence or beyond a reasonable doubt that like you've
right,
done
but
this.
that doesn't change the fact that like truthfully you were.
But that
still
doesn't change anything. That could always be the case, right? Like I don't get what this means.
We
Yeah,
like
the
nothing is going to be
problem
100%.
here. The problem here, like to pound it down, the mainly reason why people expunge their records isn't to like regain their gun rights. It's like probably a very small number of the population. It's the fact that they want decent jobs, and there's always a check mark that says, "Have you ever been convicted of a felony or crime?" And most people want to say no, and if they have been convicted of such, the only option they have is to expunge it. That's the fucking biggest issue with this. This is why I'm saying it should be automatic once they leave jail or once they pay off their fucking ticket or whatever the fuck it's
Yeah,
due.
but you're just so wait. Yeah, can we justify that? Other than it feels good, why ought they have this automatically?
I'll tell you why. Because we want these people. Because the point of our jail system in America is theoretically for not retribution. It's to rehabilitate these people. It's not retribution.
I don't think it is.
But
I don't agree with
in
that
the
at all.
ideals of America, it should be rehabilitative, not retributive, right? But
It
the
should
way
be.
it's set up now,
It is
the way
not
it's set
as
up
it
now
is
is
now.
retributive, right? And that's if we still have this way, it's just making these people continue to be villains. I'll give you an example, right? When I was back in high school, I went with my state senator to a juvenile
detention
penitentiary, that thing. And the way they spoke to these kids was like, you put yourself in the shoes of these victims. You did wrong. You did this. You did this. And I felt like it was fucked up. They're trying to make these kids feel like they are just criminals at the jump. And yes, they did wrong, but it just doesn't feel as if they want to rehabilitate these people. They don't want to bring them back into society, make them feel as if they can be normal people again.
So again, I can believe that. I've experienced some of that firsthand myself, but I don't think trying to lay the gravity on the actions of certain people, and bring that to their awareness is like demonizing them. It is the truth in some cases. You have accosted other people you may not have had any empathy for, and we want you to be able to understand the gravity of the things you've done, that they've affected other people. So I don't think saying that is wrong. But what I can agree with is that, I mean, like, there are like programs and institutions that are detrimental in the way we think of rehabbing people. But I get that. But I don't think that justifies them having an automatic expungement, right? And then there are things I think we can do to mitigate the issue of recidivism, right? So if your brother is having an issue finding a job, well, we can ban the box, right? There are efforts to do this, where we don't have to click whether you're a felon or not. While he doesn't have to say yay or nay, right? He can apply just like anybody else. His record stays the same, right? Because his record is his record. And I don't think it just automatically, because, like, I'm having a tough time, says, well, I gotta get rid of my record.
Yeah, but I disagree with that, because I think there are some instances where the box is important, right? Like if you're applying for a daycare and you literally went to crime for children crimes, you shouldn't be working there. And if you went to crime for embezzlement, you shouldn't be working in a financial firm, right? There's nuance to it.
Yeah, but we could just apply that in the law. So
Right.
we already do this. Like for instance, if you apply really for any like med stuff, if you apply to be take the bar, anything like that, they're going to ask you questions like, have you ever been convicted of any crime or arrested for any crime, regardless of if this has been expunged or not, and you legally have to tell them whether or not that's true, right?
And what I'm talking about is an expansion of, like, forever. And I'm not talking about because a lot of these things happen for like low skilled low skilled labor jobs, right? No, you should be able to do construction if you're a felon, right? You should be able to, like, put together washing machines in an actual factory or build cars or some shit, right? That's that type of ban in the box. And I think we can also ban the box on the federal level, which there are initiatives to do so in the places where we can do that, because we do have a lot of like laborious jobs, slow skill labor jobs, right, available for people to take, and we need labor.
I think though that the biggest problem.
I think though that I thought the ban the box thing kind of failed because, like, it kind of was a detriment to the people that were supposed to help, because what happened is that the employees just started to find proxies for who they think are criminals, so they just discriminate against black people and so on more because they were not allowed to ask for their criminal record.
So
that's at least what I heard.
That's definitely a legitimate consideration.
One problem I see with the entire system as a whole is, so as Free said, yes, there are labor or menial jobs that we absolutely need to have filled. However, having a conviction on your record should not mean that after you have served your time, the only jobs one can do are menial jobs, because that does keep one in the exact same place that they were whenever the crime they committed, like whenever they did commit that crime. So if a person who's committed a crime should still have the ability for upward mobility. Whenever we do have or think like a felony or something is it's treated like an immutable character, I think it should be treated like an immutable characteristic and like something that should not be utilized against you, especially after serving your time. I
A
just
felony?
don't. Yes.
Right, but again, like if you worked in a daycare and you like diddled kids, no way you're gonna like I'm gonna let you not only on the low skill level, but any other higher level, never, right? And
I absolutely hear that.
So and I understand like that people's trepidation for putting a felon in again higher level. I'm not saying that no one should give you an opportunity or you can't get those or you cannot move up there. I'm sure there will be or there will be opportunities, but they will be like few and far between. They won't be the same as any other upstanding citizen, and they ought not be.
Well,
I'm not saying they should.
but wouldn't that keep the criminals or the convicted felons in the same circle that like made them to be into the situation that they're in? Like, wouldn't that create or promote a violent circle?
Criminals don't have jobs. I don't think most criminals do like go to work every day.
No. But like for the rehabilitated ones, that was just like a first time offender that fucked up, and then now they're trying to get back into society. Wouldn't that create a violent circle for those people?
What? No. If he still has access to meaningful work, work that can pay his bills, why would it?
Yeah, like when you guys are talking about like giving them access to upper mobility in society, I think that's very different. That's more of getting people to be convinced that they can trust felons in these parts of society.
Okay.
But like,
is there an inherent reason not to? Like if they're first time, hold on. I want to set the parameters for you.
Yeah.
Like if they're a first time offender and they haven't repeat offended similar or any other crimes at all, like should we be viewing them as if they're felons? Like and giving them the same stigma as like a repeat offender or like a severely repeating violent crime offender or like egregious acts of like atrocities against individuals. Like
isn't
it would depend again for like, if you wanted again to work at a restaurant. I'm sure like people would be a kitchen manager. I'm sure no one would care that you robbed a bank. But if you again wanted to be like going to a bank work, no, there's no financial institutions that's ever going to accept you for like a clear reason. Number one, you tried to rob a bank, and if people find that out about you and you're in a financial institution, they can take advantage of you.
Sure, definitely. Okay, I'll agree with you.
So again, upward mobility is at a certain levels will be capped, right? Because a kitchen manager at a restaurant isn't going to be as successful as like someone working even in the lower levels of like the financial industry in America. So
it's not even just that free. I think like another thing that caps it is literally just how people feel about these things. Because at the end of the day, right, like we can acknowledge that there are factors that get these people into that lifestyle, but like once you're in that lifestyle, right, once you're a felon or you've been like you're viewed as a felon, like you put yourself in a position where it's really hard to try to now convince the rest of society to not view you as a felon. But like that's on you to then do, right? That's on you to be like, listen, I'm a functioning member. I've like this is the work I've done. This is like everything I can do to try and be better.
Okay,
what
but
I'd like to add to that is the idea that
title or like hold on, just real quick. I just want to address this because I agree with free. I agree with average to some degree, but like what I'm talking about is like people that are going in for simple like violent crimes, right? Something that gets blown out of proportion a lot is like assault, right? Like assault charges. You can cop a serious assault charge for just getting in a bar fight, right? And now you're a felon coming out. Yes, you can. Yes, 100%.
We agree. No, we agree.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So if that's the case, and you just got in one bar fight, right, and now you have a Class B felony on your record, having to wait 7 years to get it to even attempt to have it expunged, like 7 years of like grueling, like I'm just saying, like to not be able to get out of a violent circle or a vicious circle of like low income jobs that can't contribute to you like society or your partner is like not healthy for the individual who's literally trying to never fall back into a ring that they never should have been in the first place, right? If they truly feel that they fell into that by happenstance and it was a bad situation and they are honestly like rehabilitated and they're never going to do it again, it's still inherently difficult to go 7 years without fucking up and adding to that record when you're in the same like circle
That's
that
tough. I know, but it's the process. It should be the process. We can't just take you on your word that you won't go to the next bar,
But
get drunk, and get
7
another
years,
bar
Chris?
fight, right? I'm not saying that you will. I'm not trying to demonize the individual, right? But the work has to be shown, right? And
Mhm.
I don't think that 7 years to wait to show that. I mean, this shows consistency. It has to take time, right? And it's the least we can ask. We can expect, right? Just
Sure.
do the time, right? If it takes 7 years, do that, and like everybody else and who doesn't have a felony is doing. And not only did I not go 7 years, I've gone my whole life without punching somebody being drunk at a bar.
And that's good, and that's honestly more commendable than the guy that lost his shit one time at the bar and punched somebody in the face. I 100% agree.
So you need to demonstrate that you can live up to that standard, and that is going to take time. And I don't think it's grueling. I mean, I don't. When I say grueling, I mean like it's like the time itself
Hey, if
is
physical labor is the only thing you can get,
no. Again, I know plenty of people. Again, I live in these marginalized neighborhoods, bro. You can put shit together. If you do right and you stay out of trouble. A lot of I am not saying like these people are always at fault, and yes, there are mitigating circumstances. But when you're in, I mean, like people fresh out of jail who don't want to go back, it's very difficult because the temptations are all around you, especially when you're underprivileged and you're put in this circumstances where they're like right in front of your face. I get it, but it's still possible, and it's work you ought do if you want the society to recognize that work.
So
Period.
you
All right, so I had a thing to wanted to bring up because the free said like, oh, like you know, if you're like an educator or whatever, right? You got caught diddling kids, you can't like redo your thing, but you can work at a restaurant, right? Like, how would you account for like somebody who's like in like a field, going to college, going into getting into student loans, getting education into a field, and then as soon as they get started in that field, they get in a bar fight, they get into some felony that like falls under that like degree, that field of work where they, oh, now you're banned. So let's say like, oh, the person was practicing to be a neonatal surgeon or something like that, and then they got it like into some like altercation, right, or like some rumor about like them diddling kids. Now, congratulations, they're out of jail. Let's say it was a bullshit charge, right? Now he can work with any children, so he's out of that field that he's prepared for 8 years, that he put out loans for. So he has to go back to working at like McDonald's, right, while still paying off a loan and wasting 8 or 12 actually, because it's a factory in college.
So you
years
loaded
of their
this
life for
up.
educating for that field.
I mean, you loaded it specifically when you said it was a bullshit charge. I would never agree with someone being falsely accused of something or like. But again, like if you,
But
I don't know
even
how
if it
bullshit.
wasn't, even if it
Wait,
wasn't, that's
yeah.
supposed,
So,
the person's
so
supposed to be in debt.
that's what I'm about to say here. Right? If this is, I mean, I don't think a bar fight is a bullshit charge, right? When you're drunk and you're belligerent, and you get into a fight at the bar. I mean, you deserve what you get. If you get arrested for being drunk and disorderly and assaulting, it's your fault, and you should know the gravity of the circumstance you have going on in your life. If you don't take your studies seriously in order to act accordingly, because I know being on college campuses, people tell folks about this. Don't go out to the bars getting super drunk fighting. You can get kicked out of school. You can lose your scholarship. You can go to jail. You can be all these things, all these consequences to your actions. They are yours because you took them. You knew you ought like pay attention to them. We are. I mean, I get it. You're in debt, and that's tough. You're just going to take longer to pay it off.
Might not
Sure,
just
bro.
be
You know
longer
what? I've
because like
seen a lot
depending on
of
student loan
subclasses
payments, it may be
criminals.
impossible to pay your debts a month and or at the same time support yourself.
Right? No, it's not impossible because like the federal government will work with you to get your money.
He probably doesn't know that you can actually structure how much you can pay back. They can't
That's
charge
what
you $1,000 a month no matter what.
That's what I was telling them. That's what I was
But
saying.
but,
though,
but
right?
do they do that
work
after
with
you come to jail? I know that initially once you get like the
Yes,
student
they
debt,
do it anyway. They regardless of your status, they want their money. You have to pay it. They're gonna like, how much can you pay? Is it $10? Bring me the $10. Bring me the $50. We know you're on. We got your W-2s. We know you only make X amount of dollars. What can you give? And we'll take that. Yes, it's going to take you longer to pay off the bill, but that was the consequence of your actions, bro.
Definitely free, and that considered, I hear what you're saying, and I heard you clearly when you said that if it is a unjust crime that was convicted, that like definitely this doesn't apply, right? That's an exception.
No,
And so for those select individuals that find themselves like wrongfully convicted and then trying to go through the process of expungement, we should make it easier for those people to try to prove their innocence rather than having
first off,
walls or loopholes that make it difficult for them to like prove their freedom or innocence.
That's
Right?
the thing. You keep assuming everybody going through a expungement is innocent. If you are innocent and you were wrongly convicted, you need to go back to you need to appeal your
You need to get your money.
Bro, I'm
Yes,
not gonna lie.
and you
Every
need to go to
single
your
person I
lawyer.
know that has their
You need
record
to
expunged, they did that shit.
You could be in prison. You could be in prison for that year. You could be in prison for that year. And although, yes, I understand from the prison system, you can try to appeal. But even on the outside, it's difficult to try to appeal or prove your narrative when like the system's working against you, right? And
I
that's
got a
the issue.
hypothetical for you. So, like, I almost got like a Grand Theft Auto charge because like my mother was fucking crazy, right? Because the car was in her name, but she would let me take it to high school, and we had a fight. This is a true story. I'm not making this shit, by the way. So I took the car. My stepdad fucking called me and said like, "Yo, she called the fucking cops, get the car back in here, right? Because she just wanted to teach me a lesson, but she's stupid and emotional, so of course like she went to the worst authority possible, right? I got the car back in time before the police arrived, but if I didn't, even if she didn't press the charges, the state could have pressed the charges on like me basically stealing a car, and it would be stealing because none of the paperwork is in my name, right? And it would be a felony because the car was worth more above the 4,000 or whatever the cutoff point was for a misdemeanor, right? So what should be remedied here, if anything, for me to get a job? Because if I got convicted, I would have gotten a felony. If I would have gotten a felony, I couldn't even apply a fucking cashier because they always ask for the criminal background.
Wait, would the state still have gone with would the state still have prosecuted you even if your parents after that like went, oh well, no, it's not really that serious, blah blah blah?
They can. If the
Well, they
state
can, but I'm saying like, is it realistic that they would?
Yes, they do. Yes, Washington State will prosecute against the will of the victim, 100%.
No, again, we understand that. What we're talking about is in this particular circumstance seems like a wasteful prosecution. This is what
that's just an example of an egregious case of like injustice and making it difficult.
You cannot hold me. You cannot. He asked me about this particular hypothetical, and I have to deal with that, not other instances. Okay.
So should should the state just not pursue in my case because my
no, that's a waste of that's number one. It's a waste of my resources and a waste of like anything, everything. We get it. It's been resolved. Your parents are trying to teach you a lesson. The authorities got involved. The police probably say, "Hey man, don't do that." That's as much as you need. We're gonna wipe our hands and go home. I'm not gonna prosecute you for this. And if they do, I would hold them accountable for being stupid.
Right, so the charge should not stick just in that case. But let's say if she did pursue it regardless, right? My mom,
Look, listen. It's really easy. If you stole your mother's car, right, and you were convicted of it, and you actually took it and didn't bring it back on time, you deserve it. But if it's undeserved, then no, it shouldn't stick. But again, if you've done this and you have a good job, or a good thing going with your wife, or like you just got the student loans and you owe a lot of money and you're almost done with the program, tough titty. Don't steal your mother's car. Don't take these risks.
So Nuke, I have a question. As far as like testimonies go, are testimonies only admissible like during court, or are like written testimonies be taken for like the DA to like look over when looking to give like a plea deal?
You were asking B because she's not here.
Oh, I was asking Nuke because but if B could answer it either, yeah, that would be.
No, she's not here.
Oh, she's not here. Oh, okay.
Yes, left the building.
I thought Nuke was at his headset.
Nuke is not muted, but maybe AFK.
Anyways, I just
Don't you want my opinion on
Just
this?
wanted to
Come on
add to
now.
that, Free, with the situation there. Like, technically, like, my mom had 2 cars, so like she always let me have it to drive to school like every day. So it's not like she didn't know. Like it was just like time for me to go to school. So technically, she could have like pursued the charge. It would be
Did
like
you
a
have
honeypot scenario.
like did you
Yeah.
have this pseudo permission or pseudo consent, or did you have
Yeah,
direct
every
consent?
day I would take my car
Yeah.
to school, and it was time for me to get to school, and we were just fighting. And I told her like, yeah, I can't have this fight right now. I have to get to school, right? Like any like teenager
Yeah.
like should at that moment.
I get
Right? And she
that.
just pulled a rug out on me. It's like, oh, I'm gonna, this car I've been lending to him for like, the past 3 years. This was like a junior or sophomore year. I'm gonna, like pull the rug from out of him and like call the cops and say that he stole it, even though I gave him a verbal permission to have it, right? To get
Yeah,
to
but that
school.
case then would have been, I don't know, like what country are you in exactly? Or I don't know if you want to say.
That was back
but-
when I lived in Jersey. All right.
Oh, you're in Jersey. Bro, like that would have been really weird for her to then even prove that it was stolen, right? Like if she probably maybe could have, but I feel like it would have been really difficult if you have like evidence that you've been driving that to school every day.
No,
Wait, it wouldn't have been difficult because all the insurance, all the paperwork is in her name.
It might be in her name, but then it would just be like you went to school with it every day. There's still enough like evidence around it that like it's not really stealing. She would
Just
have to prove
because
that
she
you went out of
owns
your way to
it
steal
doesn't
this.
mean that you stole it. You can
Yeah.
give permission to other people.
What I'm thinking like the most you can do from I know topically you can call the police, say somebody like my son stole my car. I neglect to tell them about the pseudo consent. That's why I asked about this, right? Did you have pseudo consent, right? Or did you just take the keys and walk the fuck out? Because if you took the keys and you have like this like tentative consent, I can understand why somebody say you stole it. Because I didn't give you consent to take my car whenever. I gave you consent to go to school, right? And yeah, well, I'm going to school. Okay, cool. We're not gonna press charges. Police will show up. Police will probably pull you over and figure out what's happening. But if it's not theft, you don't go to jail. But if it is, you got to deal with it.
Not legally under the definition, it is 100% theft because like it was like a verbal, this is like a bit of a mix of situation, right? Because like a responsible thing for me is to, oh, let's finish this like verbal fight after you come back from school or whatever, right? But because she was a petty bitch, I can say that. She just like wanted to use this as like another thing to like quote unquote fuck me up because like what's more important, us having the verbal argument about like I don't even know what it was about, or me getting my grades back in order because I was failing at that time.
I don't care about any of your interpersonal shit between you and your mom. I'm talking about what the law is going to interact with. We don't care about that.
No, that's what. But I've already told you. In the eyes of the law, it would have been theft, 100%.
No, it would
No,
not.
because the law is not like stupid, right? The law understands that there's circumstances sometimes that like that don't make these things seem as criminal as they might seem like on their face, right? In the eyes of the law, what you did is like it's just going to school. You have enough evidence being like, I've taken this car every time I've gone to school. This is like how my mode of getting to school. This is my history of it, blah, blah, blah. Even if it's under your mom's name, there's still enough evidence to be like, it's not like he did this in a criminal manner. It's not like he went out of his way to steal something. This is just the norm.
What's the scenario?
He took his mom's car to go to school and his mom called the police saying it was stolen. But like, that's the car he drives to school normally.
She
Did she
going
call
see
it
now?
on you, or
You're
did she
presuming
actually
like
just
this
think
proof.
it
By the way,
was
this was
stolen?
back in I graduated 2012. This was like 2010. Like there was no like cameras in the parking lot. I don't know like because
There
like
don't
now
need to
you
be
could've
cameras at
proved
the
it.
parking. I mean,
I'm
if your
just
mom
wondering,
really
what could I
wanted to go out
prove?
of the
What would be like an example
Was
of like
it,
proof?
what
Like
was
I
the
was gonna talk
school?
to my
No,
classmates
yeah,
or
no,
something?
no. I mean, you had to register the car. I mean, from what I know, you don't just like students can't just drive
Yeah,
cars.
did you have school
They have to be
parking?
registered like a school
No.
parking.
Well, I mean, you had school parking, but it wasn't like you had it assigned or license plate like the school knew it, right? Like anybody could have parked their car and like you wouldn't know.
Well, no, wait. The reality is, you'd go to court. If this ever even went to court, you'd be in that room and they'd be like, how'd you get to school every other time?
Yeah, and I would say by car, but like, what would be the proof of that? That's
Really, the weird thing.
I mean,
is
unless
your
you're
mom
unless you're going to the extent that like no one in your life knew you drove that car. Like, I mean, I guess maybe that could be the case. If you were the only person who knew you drove that car, and your mom decided to lie in court, yeah, you'd be
It was
screwed.
just me
But
and my
like,
stepdad. Yeah.
No, but wait, just think about that though. Like, how can you prove that you drive your car currently right now? Like, how do you prove that?
What? Again, all the
That's
things we
tricky
just
part.
said. I have a parking permit. I have a tag.
Yeah, that's what I'm
signs,
saying. I didn't have a parking permit for my high school.
No, I'm not talking to you. I was answering Paris. He was asking, how do you prove that you drive your car? I can show. I mean, there's video of me, whether I like it or not, of me driving. Traffic cams that caught me accidentally. I mean, I've been speeding. I'm in the car behind him, right? Or I'm in a drive-through at a restaurant in my car. Right.
There's probably enough people who've seen me in the vehicle. There's probably there's some type of record. There's no way that there's like, I mean, there might be a way, but it seems wild to be like you could go to jail and never be able to prove you've like had access to that car, especially if it's like your high school driving car.
The fact that you're driving the car is also evidence that you're authorized to drive a vehicle. Like the burden is to yes it is.
Absolutely not.
Yes, it is.
Also,
it is. The burden is on the mom to prove that it was stolen for like a different.
Yeah, the burden is on the state to prove that the vehicle was stolen. If you're just driving around like your normal vehicle, like if I'm driving around in my vehicle, that's why people say dumb shit like possession is 9/10 of the law. That's what they mean when they say that. Like if you have possession of something and you're using it in a normal fashion, we automatically assume that you have lawful possession of that thing.
No, we don't. No.
Yeah, we do. Wait. When a cop pulls someone over, the assumption isn't.
When a cop look at who the car is registered to, and then that person decides what happens with that property. If your mom decides that you cannot drive that car on Saturdays, and you drive it on Saturdays, and she reports it stolen, you're